One final testimony here. This is from Nathaniel. I just found this, and it speaks to me on a lot of levels. Too many forget that the continuance of a people should come from the love of one's own people, and not a hate for the other. I hate the mistakes I made. I wear them every day, and some I even wish I could take back. But time is merciless and flows only forward. I'm trying to rectify them, but some I may just have to live with. It's an uphill battle. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt.
Everything from being a man to encouraging your kin to face tattoos to how you identify yourself and your beliefs to discerning your motivations for why you want to see the children of the West survive. Don't make my mistakes. You'll feel like a fool otherwise. Don't make my mistakes. As from Nathaniel Nelson, a warning to him about the warnings that he wished he had somebody share with him.
Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt. No White Guilt. Listen to this guy, No White Guilt. No White Guilt.
And we are rolling in, going free, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a very special guest today. Please, while you have an opportunity, like the stream, share it across all of your social media platforms, or I might have to hunt you down, beat the heck out of you. But before then, we're going to bring on the wonderful, the one and only. She's been here before, and she was a big fan favorite. I got many emails many DMs about this woman, former Canadian broadcaster, Jill Colton. Let me bring her forward right now, ladies and gentlemen. There she is. How are you doing tonight, Jill?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I am a little bit nervous, though, to talk.
Okay. Why is that?
I'm
so easygoing.
We haven't talked for like a year, so.
Oh, I guess it has been too long. We're definitely going to, folks like you so much. I like you so much. We'll have to have you back far more often.
That's nice. Thank you.
Glad to see you. You're looking fabulous. You're looking vivacious, like you're full of energy. But are you feeling like you're full of energy? We're going to be talking about, of course, fertility, IVF, and fertilizing eggs, I think, is in the title today. Are you feeling energetic?
I'm feeling tired. I have two children, actually, 2 and 5, and they keep me really busy. And I'm a late night person. So even though I know they're going to get up at 6:37 in the morning, I cannot help but go to bed at midnight or 12:30. And it's this vicious cycle that I'm in where I'm constantly tired. And I know better. I know to go to bed at like 9:30, 10, but that's impossible. I can't do it.
I'm the exact same way. I just went a few days without sleep. It was terrible. It's terrible for your health. And somehow you look amazing, even though you've been going without sleep.
Thank you. That's very nice. I feel old. I feel like.
How about your husband? How's your husband making out? Does he feel vivacious and young or old?
He feels the same way.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's the energy. You see, it's kind of a trade-off. You're giving them all of this energy, the offspring that you have now, all of this energy, so that when you are actually old and tired, they can render it back to you.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope I raised them well and that they do that and they think of me.
Well, I think they probably will. I hope so. You're looking after them. From the previous conversations we had, it sounds like you're definitely forward-thinking and protective mother, and you understand what's going on in the world and the dangers that are out there, presented especially to these white little babies out there in the world, targeted under these crosshairs of this awful civilization. So much so, I think we just had this video come out that I'll probably cover maybe tomorrow on a roll-in short of this white guy having to call the authorities on a anti-white, non-white guy who had a knife. And he was saying he was going to kill his kids and his family.
Wow.
And the police came to get the anti-white, non-white guy. And they were arresting him. And the white guy began crying because he did not want the non-white guy arrested, thought that he would be viewed as a racist if that happened. And that apparently was more important to him, this disease of anti-whiteism, more important to him than his flesh and blood. I know if your children were threatened by some monster out there in society, you probably would have no problem having them sent away.
I wouldn't. Maybe that'll happen one day and I'll be on the cover of all the newspapers and I'll have my face and I'll just say racist. And then and everyone, I would say, great. I'm happy. Thank you. You've complimented me. At least I'm sticking up for my children and not some coward.
Yeah, exactly. Some absolute monster trying to harm people.
Yeah, I think it's about, though, I don't know if they're necessarily like I think it's more just about groupthink mentality. I think that they're so scared about the pile-on that'll happen that they immediately want to recuse themselves and say, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. Please don't think I am.
Right.
I think it's more about that. And the reason I say that is because we saw a lot of that with COVID. We saw this sheep mentality where everybody just kind of goes along with everything and you don't want to go against the grain. And the pile-on is so sick. What they do to white people in the media, they just vilify you. They call you a Karen, and you lose your job. But I do think the tidal wave of that is switching a little bit. I think we're starting to see a lot more people say, this is garbage. I don't believe this. The media is anti-white. I know a lot of normie people.
That's right.
People that are just run-of-the-mill. They're liberals, in fact. And they're just like, yeah, the media like hates white people. Like, these are just people, and they say this just out of nowhere. So I do think that it's changing a little bit, which is great.
Oh my gosh, it is so great. We lived our whole lives. You walked on eggshells, landmines, I'm sure, through your career. And so many folks do. And so many folks can't even get jobs because they discriminate against white people. And that's what we try to focus on here is when they have these diversity hirings, we focus on the fact that we're the diversity firings. We focus on the fact that we're the ones that aren't getting the jobs and the promotions and et cetera, and how we're victimized by that. So yeah, it's time for this cult of anti-whiteism to come to its end, or it's going to finish off Western civilization, and particularly white families. To bring us back to the subject at hand, white families and trying to have white families and grow white families, that's a difficult thing to do today. And we're not only assailed psychologically and spiritually by anti-whiteism, but also with the environment that's created, so that women are forced ultimately to be looking to later in life to have children, and the food that you have to eat and medicines are all detrimental, it seems, everywhere you turn. I don't know how a woman navigates that, and hopefully you're going to clue me in tonight about how a woman navigates that.
It's really tough. Let me tell you, I've become somewhat of a pseudo expert in fertility because I have been, unfortunately, through the ringer with infertility for a good 5 to 6 years now. Things were not so easy for me getting pregnant and having 2 healthy children. So I'm blessed that I have 2 healthy children, but something inside of me says, no, I want another child. And my husband just rolls his eyes at me because he cannot believe that I want to put myself through all of the pain and trauma again of trying to have a 3rd baby. Yeah, he would love to have a third baby, no doubt, but he's just like, do you really want to do this to yourself again? Look at what you've already accomplished, like having 2 children. Like you've really, God's made it tough for you. And I can't believe you want to do this again. But there's just this innate biological urge for me to just have my family be complete with 3 children. Of course, if that's not God's will, then I have to accept that. And I am very blessed to just have 2 children, which, makes me happy every single day. And I'm grateful for that. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm not. But like I said, I definitely have the urge to have another one. And so I have to go through the rigorous process of infertility treatment. It's wonderful. I say that with total sarcasm.
I bet. I bet. Well, let me, before we jump right into that, just out of curiosity, where do you think did you have the urge to have children at when you were younger, and then you sublimated that, or you didn't have it at all?
No.
Isn't that interesting? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a weird case in the sense that from the time I was young, I didn't really, it's not that I didn't want children. I wanted to have a big career. I really did. I think because my mother she was vice president of a company in a time when women weren't really working. So she was my role model for that. I always was focused on career, and children were always like an afterthought. And I wanted to get married. I definitely wanted children, but it was always something that I was like, in the future. I'm focused on this right now. And I mean, sure, I'm going to take a lot of judgment for that. I think it's me, though. I don't know if it's necessarily brainwashing from the media, as opposed to I might just be an exception in the sense that like I really wanted a career. And then I hit 35 and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, this is meaningless. I said, I cannot believe that I have spent all of my time and my life and my energy, both physically and mentally, on this job, because you know what, at the end of the day, it is so meaningless. And I cannot believe that I have put off having children. And then I became desperate to have children. It was so weird. It was just like something just clicked inside of me. And I was like, it was like Holy Spirit moment. Wow. And he was like, you got to get going because time is ticking.
Right.
So think of that, like 35, I start trying to have a baby. Most people have already completed their family at 35. Right. So it was already really late in the game for me. Not to say that you can't have lots of children after 35. You absolutely can, but it's more difficult for most of us.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think a lot of women, and I'm certain of it, a lot of women can identify exactly with what you're talking about there. Mm-hmm. They were consumed with building a career, and then realized that, wait a second, this is sort of vapid. This is sort of hollow. I'm working for some stranger. I'm making some strangers wealthier and wealthier instead of building something with a family, with myself, something that lasts, that has meaning.
Right. And, you don't really think about creating a legacy necessarily when you're younger. You're so involved in school. Like I went to university for 4 years. Then I went to college for 2 years. Then I worked in media for 12 years. I had a big career for sure. And there was something just in me that was like, I need to be on television. I want this for my life. It's very important to me to achieve these goals. I was always like a type A personality where I had to like achieve things. I had to get like the awards in school, and like, that's just me. I'm a geek. And so I just got to the point when I was like 35. I remember I was at that cross where I thought to myself, I can go to the States and try to establish a career in media, or I can focus on trying to have a family. And also I had like a really bad taste in my mouth at that point because I just saw how corrupt the media industry was. So for me, I just thought like, if I go to the US, I try to get an agent, it's going to take all of my time. And this idea of a family might just pass me by. And again, at that point, it was during the Trump era, like where he was becoming president, and like the media just went insane. Like even Canadian media just went full retard. And they just like hated Trump, and Trump's this and like the lies. And I just remember thinking like, I'm selling my soul and I don't have children. What am I doing? Like it was just such a moment for me. Like, it was so extreme that I swear I went to bed one night. I didn't care about having kids, or like I did, but again, it was like in the future. And then the next day I woke up and I was like in crying that I didn't have kids. It was that it was really strange. And I just thought, I got to get going on this. I can't imagine, like I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, I couldn't imagine like being 45 and being in the same career and like not having kids. Like, what does the back half of your life look like without children?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? You're doing the same thing. You think traveling and going to restaurants and, you know, playing tennis or whatever is going to fulfill you. Like, it's not. Like, things kind of get worse after the back half of your life. Your health can deteriorate, you know, people around you that you love pass away, like all these sorts of things. Like, you know, you start to see things very differently as you age. When you're like 21, you don't think about that stuff, right? You just, you kind of focus on what's in front of you. But as you get older, you're just like, I went into a panic, really. Like, I was just like, I just couldn't believe, like, because I had worked with women didn't have babies and didn't have husbands. And I saw what their life looked like. Struggling to make ends meet. They're working on television. They have nobody. And I thought, I will never be that. Like, I can't sacrifice my marriage for this job. I can't sacrifice having children for this job. This is a job. At the end of the day, yeah, it's a good one, but it's a job.
Right.
Like, is it going to be on your deathbed, like with you, consoling you, like this job?
Exactly.
Like, you know, like at the end of the day. But I'm happy, like, you know, at the same time, I'm happy that I achieved goals. And I don't know if I would be the same person that I am if I hadn't done those things. So I think it was God's will, in the sense that everything worked out in its favor for me. Like, this is how it was supposed to be for me. I do have regrets because, again, I've gone through infertility. It hasn't been easy for me, this journey to motherhood, probably due to my age. If I had been trying when I was younger, maybe that wouldn't have been the case, but maybe it would have been. I don't know. I can't really think about that, though. Like, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a timeline that doesn't exist.
Yeah, like, I just have to focus on the here and now, right?
Right. So, yeah. Well, you were presented. So as are most women nowadays in modernity, you were presented with this sort of fork in the road. You had pursued what you had been told, and perhaps to some degree it had originated in yourself, was this meaningful existence, achieving success in business or work specifically. And then you came to this fork in the road, and it was, do I continue down this path and end up a vicious cat lady, hoarding cats as well, or do I go this other direction and try to have a family? And you decided to go the direction, have a family, and you have two wonderful little babies now, and you're continuing to try to grow the family.
Yes.
So where does that put you now, since you've had some infertility, and what are the steps, and what is fertility for women who are of your age range and they're trying to have babies?
Well, I mean, I'm over 40. So I had my first baby at 37. I had my second baby at 40, and now I'm 42. And people are like, whoa, you still want to have babies? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm healthy. I'm totally healthy. Why not? I didn't have any issues with my pregnancies once I got pregnant. Like, it was fine. My issue was miscarriages. I would get pregnant and then I would miscarry. And so I went to a fertility clinic, because for me, like, I had my first son. I was natural pregnancy, which was great. So I thought I was like invincible. That's a dumb thing to think. And then after that, I just would have all of these miscarriages. So in total, I've had 5 miscarriages. It's a lot for
my gosh.
And then you have chemical pregnancies where you test positive on a pregnancy test, and then a couple of days later, you're not pregnant anymore. And that also counts for miscarriages. So
damn.
Yeah. So once I had 5 miscarriages, I was like, okay, like, I can't go through this anymore physically. Like, this is not good for my body. I have to go see a fertility specialist, because something is up. Like, how can you have one natural pregnancy and then just have all these miscarriages? It's like a mystery. And again, like, I'm very type A. So it's a problem that I need to solve. And with fertility, every month matters. Like, every month counts, right? So the longer you hold off and the longer you wait, that opportunity to have a baby it dwindles really. And people don't understand, because like I had one baby, so they were like, well, can't you just be satisfied with your son? I mean, he's perfectly healthy. Like, you know, why do you need to have a second baby then? And I was like, well, you know, it's just, I needed to have a second baby. Like, it's just a drive that you have within you. I wanted so desperately to give my son a sibling, because I grew up without siblings. And so I didn't want that life for him.
Right.
That's another thing you don't think about when you're young, right? Like, how many children do you want to have, right? Family is really important, because it doesn't take necessarily 3 years for you to have 3 babies. I mean, if you're a fortunate woman, yeah, okay, fine. But like for us unfortunate women, it can take years. It can span decades of having, you know, trying to get pregnant.
Right.
So I went to the fertility clinic and I was diagnosed with egg quality due to age. How original. So they said poor egg quality because you're old. Which to this day, I don't really believe, because when I actually did IVF and I did my retrieval, my results were astounding. And they said that like my fertility was actually 3 to 4 years younger than my actual age. So it's kind of hard for me to believe that that is the reason, but I've never had another diagnosis, so I have to go with that.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'm going to take grief, like in the comments about IVF. I am Catholic, I'm Christian, and this is against the church. I know a lot of people are against IVF, especially your pro-lifers. They don't believe in IVF because conception begins at life, or, you know, sperm, egg, meat. It's a baby.
Right.
And so what happens is that in the IVF process, you have embryos, and the embryos are frozen in time. And some of them get discarded, right? Once you have your amount of babies, like in your family, what do you do with the rest of your embryos? Some people donate them. Some people like donate them to another family. Some people donate them to science. Some people destroy them. So this is like the heart of the issue for a lot of Catholics. They believe that, you know, IVF is bad. For me, it's difficult because I am a Catholic. So, you know, I don't talk to my priest about it. But in my mind, I was like, I'm doing this because if this is the only way that I can have another baby, like you know, God created this technology the way that I see it. This technology exists, and only God can see what's inside of your heart, you know. My intentions have always been to just create my family, to expand my family, right? So for me, I just was like, this is how I'm going to do it. It's not ideal. I didn't want that. Nobody really wants to sit in you know, a fertility clinic. It's not a nice experience, right? Nobody wants that. But if that's the way that you can create a baby, well, the technology is there. And if you have the money and you can afford it, then why not? And so my second son was an IVF baby, is an IVF baby.
Oh, okay. So it worked. It actually it worked out perfectly.
Yes. So I did my retrieval. So there's a 2-step process in IVF. Most people, they don't know. The retrieval is where you get the drugs to create the eggs in your ovaries, and then they're extracted in the retrieval process. And then they're frozen. Well, basically they have to do like a process where they, you know, inject the sperm, and then it's like they become, you know, in this petri dish sort of, and like how did they develop? And then if they get to 3 days or 5 days, they can be frozen, or you can do a fresh transfer, which is like, I didn't do that. I did frozen embryo transfer because my eggs had to be tested because of all my miscarriages. So what people, like a lot of people don't understand is that they think, oh, well, you're just testing to get rid of Down syndrome. Well, no, there's like a lot of trisomies, which are chromosomal abnormalities that create miscarriages. So the baby won't get past 6 or 7 weeks. Like, and then you're going to go through a full-fledged miscarriage, which isn't good for your body. Like, it's just healthy. And as myself, who had had 5 of them, didn't want to experience that again because it is very traumatic. And,
Wow.
miscarriages can lead to infections, and some women, they choose not to get DNCs, which is like a minor surgery. They decide to pass naturally, and they can end up in hospital with serious infections,
Oh my gosh.
blood loss. Oh yeah, it's like a big thing. I've known actually several women that have had infections because of it, and then they had to go get the DNC anyways.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that whole process, first is the retrieval, and then you do the transfer. So your body gears up for a transfer. You do a couple of things, like it's a protocol based on what you have going on. The doctor will give you a protocol. Sometimes it involves drugs, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's blood thinner, sometimes it's steroids, sometimes it's just a natural transfer where they don't really do anything. And then they do the transfer. So they insert the embryo, and then you wait and you see how that goes. So the first time I did it, I got pregnant and I had a healthy baby. I didn't have any issues with pregnancy, like getting pregnant. It was more for me, it was like holding on to the baby. That was my issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And this somehow helped with holding on to the baby, as you say, because I guess they've tested the embryo and it did not have the trisomies, the chromosomal abnormalities that cause. Okay.
So what was happening is that when I would have a miscarriage, they would test the embryo, because I requested it, to see if I was miscarrying healthy embryos or not. Well, it turns out that 3 of the 5, because the first 2 I didn't get tested because I didn't know what I was doing. After that, the next 3 they did test, and they came back as chromosomally abnormal, which means that that baby never would have survived. Like, it was a miscarriage guaranteed. And that's what most miscarriages are. Like, they really are mostly chromosomal abnormalities. So in my case, they did test. Like, I had to pay extra for them to test, but that was the whole point of me doing IVF, was to make sure that a really healthy egg was being implanted in me. Not to say that you can't miscarry a healthy egg. It does happen. There's no guarantees, right?
Right.
But they had a lot of confidence because I'd already had a baby naturally. So it was a bit of a different scenario, and I felt confident too.
Right. So otherwise, I mean, if it's not the abnormalities, there are various ways that you cannot bring a baby to term, but they found through this testing that in your case, it wasn't your body causing this to not come to term. It was the abnormalities.
Yes. But like I said, I don't know if that is the complete picture, because I did so well with the amount of eggs that ended up being normal that they extracted in the retrieval process. So who knows? It's a mystery. And I have to tell you, like, they don't know that much. Like, they really don't. There's a lot of big question marks. You assume that they have all the knowledge in the world about infertility. They don't. And that is one thing. If you have to go through the infertility process, you have to be the researcher. You have to be your best advocate. Like, I have spent countless hours researching infertility and issues that I may have had. And thank goodness I did. It's made me a lot smarter going in, talking to these doctors. I mean, they really talk down to you. They think they know everything. It's like during COVID, right? They think they know everything. Oh, you're an idiot, anti-vaxxer. You don't know anything. Actually, hold on. I do. I know quite a bit. Yeah, like, I just had this kind of conversation with my doctor about endometriosis. I was like, I asked her, and she got me pregnant, right? So she's my fertility doctor. I said, like, do you think there's a chance I have endometriosis? Like, that's why I had so many miscarriages. And she just, like, total rebuff of this comment that I made. So she's a Harvard educated fertility doctor. So she thinks she knows everything, and she does. She's not stupid. She's clearly a brilliant woman. However, you can't really compete with a mother who's dealing with infertility, because she's going to be adamantly researching every single day. It's very hard to compete with that. So I'm like, wait, hold on a second. This is a Braverman clinic, and they specialize in endometriosis. And they say it's the #1 cause of women having miscarriages. It's called silent endometriosis. So here's the link. Fuck you. And so after that, like, I got like somewhat of an apology, because it was like, oh yeah, it's true. This is a cause of infertility, and there is a chance you do have it, because a lot of the symptoms with it's called silent endometriosis, because you don't know that you have it. You could have stage 4 endometriosis and not know, unless you go to a
Wow.
special surgeon who literally, like, they have to check. It's called a laparoscopy. They have to, like, go in and give you a surgery to find out if you have it. There's no test. Like, there's no blood test to determine. There's really only symptoms, right? And miscarriages, recurrent ones, are certainly one of the symptoms. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's just as an aside, you bring up a very important point, and that's being your own advocate, especially in today's healthcare, where we've seen, I mean, they are pushing for what they refer to as equity in healthcare, which means that what we say here, no white person can be healthier than the sickest non-white person. So they're giving preferential treatment to non-white people, which means they have to discriminate against white people. And doctors are, as you experience there, they can sort of commonly be dismissive of the patient, that you're just like the laity and you couldn't possibly know. You have to speak up for yourself, folks. Be like Jill. Speak up for yourself. Get the information. Don't be afraid to go to your doctor and say, chew on this a while. Here's a legit study. They can't, I mean, these people, you can be educated in a field and there are things you miss. There are a lot of things, especially in fields like that. It's very complex. And so, yeah, you have to inform the conversation. And so you improved your health. You improved your chances by bringing that information to your doctor, which is ultimately somebody who's working for you. It's your employee.
Right. Yeah, potentially. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like their diagnosis is correct. It sounds good on paper, but it makes sense. But at the same time, it doesn't. But again, like it's this mystery. When you have infertility, it's like a mystery that you have to solve because every woman's case is different.
Okay.
Like some women have PCOS. They don't ovulate. Other women have endometriosis. Other women have like a slanted pelvis. Other women have blood clotting issues. They have egg quality issues. Like, and this spans all ages, by the way. Like I go to the fertility clinic, and you would think most of the women there are my age, but that's not true.
Really?
A lot of women there. First off, the fertility clinics are packed. They are absolutely packed. The wait, sometimes I'm there 3-4 hours, like just waiting.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's like I said, it's a nightmare process. I mean, ultimately the goal is to have a beautiful, healthy baby, and all of that waiting and all of that like demoralization of IVF and all of that was worth it 100% because I have a beautiful, healthy son. So I'm willing to put myself through that again. However, these waiting rooms are filled with women that are younger, like definitely late 20s for sure.
Wow.
It's not just women. You would think it's the example of like somebody like me, like I'm the archetype in the fertility room. Yeah, there's a lot of me's, but there's also a lot of like 35 and younger for sure.
Do you have any idea from your reading and study, given that you've been focusing on fertility, what is causing this infertility in so many younger women as well?
Yeah, I have a few theories. Number one, food, for sure. I think that the diet of most people is awful. I think that if you clean up your diet for 3 months, that's all you need to do, by the way, 3 months. It takes 90 days to create a new egg. So if you can eat clean for 3 months, you will likely like reap the benefits with that egg. I definitely think toxic environment is a big one. I mean, there's so many toxins in our environment that you have toxic overload within your body. That is a huge thing. Like we're talking about toxins, like, let's get really specific here. Eating out of plastic containers versus glass, inhaling cleaning products that have bleach, using makeup that is not clean. Like,
oh yeah.
You're ingesting lipstick, you have, your skin is porous, right? You're getting these toxins, these metals really going into your body. Sleep, you have to get adequate sleep. This is my big failure. Exercise, moderate exercise, not hardcore heavy duty exercise, which is actually not good if you're trying to have a baby. You shouldn't be doing things like CrossFit. You should be doing things like walking briskly or yoga or swimming. Shouldn't be running really. I was a big runner and I had to stop running because it's very hard on your body. Also, sunlight is very important. You have to get a lot of sunlight and you have to take supplements. Like you have to take supplements. There's a whole whack of them that you have to take really. everything from like vitamin E, vitamin C, CoQ10 for egg quality. There is vitamin B12. Like I have, do you want me to really geek out here for a second? I don't want to bore your
Please.
Okay.
Geek out, yes.
So 60% of the population has something called MTHFR, which is a mutation. So you can't process folic acid. Folic acid is synthetic anyway, so we shouldn't be taking it. It's not good for you. So they'll always tell women in the fertility clinics, make sure that you're taking a prenatal with folic acid. Well, if you have this mutation that I have, you're actually causing potential damage to the fetus, and also you could be creating a miscarriage. So a lot of women that have MTHFR, which is the genetic mutation, there's nothing wrong with that. You have to be cognizant of it. So you have to get a blood test to indicate that you do have this. And in that case, you would take a prenatal that has something called methylfolate, which is the active version of folate. And that way your body can process it. So sometimes it's just something that simple that can change you from having a miscarriage. Also thyroid issues. There's a lot of women that have thyroid issues. They start taking levothyroxine and all of a sudden they don't have a miscarriage and they get pregnant. Like there's so many things, but definitely food. Like if you want to change your diet, you got to take out dairy. If you want to get pregnant, dairy, like when they say, oh, have dairy, this is a lie. It is totally a lie. Another globalist lie. Dairy is really mucousy, so it's not good for fertility at all. Like everything kind of gets sticky, right? You don't want that. You want things like a river in your body to flow, like you want water, you know? So drink water. And don't have sugar. Sugar is evil. Sugar is the bane of fertility. This is like, you have to be really like basically on the Mediterranean diet. That's a really good diet for fertility. So you're eating a lot of fish. I hate fish, by the way. So I say chicken, turkey. Red meat is good, but you have red meat like once or twice a week because it can be inflammatory. Which I know seems so crazy because everybody's so obsessed with like, oh, well, grass-fed beef, it's amazing. But like if you're already prone to inflammation and you're adding to that, like really it's individual, right? Like some people might not have a problem with red meat. Other people do, right? Because they're already inflamed. But typically if you take out sugar from your diet, you will lessen that inflammation. Also gluten, get rid of it. Don't have gluten at all. Like you have to switch completely. No gluten. It's like super bad for pregnancy and fertility. It's hard. Like it's not easy.
So our doctors, things have been such that for decade after decade that doctors have been telling us to take this pill, take that pill, have this shot. And they weren't really talking much about food. And then some of them have given a little bit of lip service where it's just like, well, try to eat healthy. And I don't know what food pyramid they might point to, because the one the government puts out in the United States is atrocious. Has it changed at all?
The standard American diet, they called it SAD. Like how humiliating was that? No, it hasn't changed. They haven't changed it at all. At the very top of the pyramid, they have like use sparingly butter and oils. And you're like, okay, yeah, maybe seed oils. Don't be ingesting motor oil, because essentially that's what vegetable oils are. But instead, switch to healthy oils. Like you can have butter, you can have ghee. If you don't want to get away from dairy completely, just cut out butter. I know that's awful because like I love butter too. I get it. But just switch to like olive oil or avocado oil or macadamia nut oil. Coconut oil is really good,
Oh yeah.
And in that case, no, they still want you to eat all these grains. I mean, look, I spend a lot of time in the US, and the bread that you guys consume is disgusting. It is so gross. It's like chewy, like gum, because there's so much gluten in it. Yeah. I make bread. It's a joke to make bread. Okay. Like it's a joke. You really need 5 ingredients. When you look at the labels of the bread in the United States and Canada too, I mean, we're not innocent. There's like all these chemicals, and you're like, I'm ingesting these chemicals, and it's just a piece of bread. So you have to look at the labels of everything you're eating.
This is so good.
It can turn you into Howard Hughes, like I get it, but you do have to be more cognizant.
No, it's so important. Of course, you have like this the trite saying that and it's the saying is trite because it's said so many times, been said so much, and I think maybe even by people who are sort of midget wits, they don't know what they're saying, but it's so very true and powerful that you are the product of what you're consuming. So if you're putting poison in, it's poison out. It's what you become.
Yeah, and I've had to become kind of like a dietary expert. It's overwhelming at first. I mean, really, what you have to do to like not feel overwhelmed is to just take things one day at a time, but also like just make small changes. So like say you have just like plastic containers in your house, in your kitchen to store food, switch them to glass. Like that's the start of something, right? Don't eat out of cans. Like try to make more meals at home. Can you hear my son crying?
It's wonderful. We love to hear babies crying or laughing or.
He's a real crybaby. He's so cute. I wish I could show him to you. He's like, oh, he's so adorable. I love him so much.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Well, we can see it right on your face. We know how cute he is just by the way you just said that.
Yeah, he is.
That's wonderful.
So sweet. He's he's called a rainbow baby, not in a gay way, because I typically for that online. They were like, I said, oh, this is my rainbow baby, like when he was born. And they're like, oh, is he gay? And I was like, no. It's like, no, they're called rainbow babies after you have miscarriages or a loss. In the fertility world, a baby that survives after loss is called a rainbow baby. Because, you know, at one time a rainbow was like a beautiful thing. It wasn't hijacked by a movement.
Right. Well, then I guess I have that in common with your son because I was born after my mother had 6 miscarriages.
Oh, wow. Look at you. God bless you and your mother. Oh, that's amazing.
She just kept trying.
Oh, I love your mom. What a warrior. She sounds like a really great lady. It takes a lot of strength to do that. Like, it's so painful having miscarriages. It's just so traumatic. You have so much hope, and then it's just dashed. It's just awful. You know,
right?
And look at how special you are.
Oh, well, thank you very much. There might be 1 or 2 people out there that think that way. She's one of them.
Well, I'm the other one.
Yeah. So yeah, it's true. I mean, I had conversations with my mother about it, and over the years, especially when I was younger, and I could see the pain on her face when she would talk about the miscarriages and how hard that was to march on.
That's the thing, right? Like you have a healthy baby and people like want you to forget that you've had all these miscarriages, but like you have babies in heaven, right? I think about that. Like, I didn't go to the extent where I like name them or anything. But I think to myself, oh, I hope one day, like if I'm a really good person, I hope I can go to heaven and like meet them.
Yes. I mean, my mom was certain of that as well. So it's a set, but that's, you draw strength from that. And in fact, she told me I don't know where it comes from, sort of like the saying, this notion that the strength of the babies that couldn't live goes into the one that does.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like all of that. It's sort of like the spirit or it's like a piece of those that didn't make it.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I'm gonna cry. It's so sweet. Oh my goodness. I love your mom. She's great.
Did
she have other children after you?
She did. She had 3 more after me. Amazing. Yep, into her 40s.
See, just like this is the power of women. Like I will say, like women get beat up so much online, and trust me, some of them deserve it. Don't get me wrong, but for the good women out there, you know, like it is a beautiful thing when you see like how much women are so desperate to bring life into this world. It's just like, it's so beautiful, really.
Yeah, it really is. And it's so monstrous that anti-whiteism is there teaching our daughters, no children for you. And if there's going to be a magazine, there's going to be like a magazine.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I can hear my husband. He's going, shh, be quiet.
Mom is trying to talk on the computer.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. It's fine. It's fine. I love hearing him in the background. It's music. It's music to our ears. No, but I mean, our daughters are bombarded with the message that having children is awful. And they ended up with this conflicted spirit that certainly can't work well for them in their lives, whether they're having children or not. as a consequence. I mean, you got to really embrace what you feel intrinsically, I think, to be a whole person.
Well, like even today, like I had this really weird moment. I brought my son to tennis practice, and the coach, like I guess my husband was there, and he was telling him that like I have this history, like as an athlete, like I played like hardcore tennis and golf when I was young, and I was like in golf camp and tennis camp, and he was like, oh, so like, do you play right now? Like, are you playing? Like, maybe you could play on my team sort of thing. And I was like, no, I'm actually like, I'm pretty busy with my kids. Like, I don't have time. He's like, oh, that's like kids, man. They take away so much of your time. And I was just like, shut up. I was so tired of hearing the negativity around children. It drives me nuts.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Like, why are children always like seen this way? Like, why are people always denoting it, like, or demoting it? Like, it just,
Yes.
I don't know. I'm like, I'm there with my 2 kids. I'm like, kind of like, I know he's just joking, like, but at the same time, it's just like this regular thing to just joke about hating your kids. And like,
yeah, that should not be like,
you can tell he didn't have kids.
yeah, exactly. He shouldn't have kids, apparently, if he has that opinion of them.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just doesn't know yet. I think that's how a lot of folks are, but
Fair
they
enough.
just don't know. Now, what about some side effects of the IVF? And was it painful? Is it a process that's scary, painful, side effects?
Yeah, there are side effects from the drugs. You get fat. That's not great.
Is that right? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think I got fatter with my second son. Maybe it's just because I ate more. But I did get fatter for sure. The drugs, like I was taking specific drugs, like so they put me on prednisone for my transfer.
Okay.
That's the part where leading up to where they insert the embryo. And it sounds so awful to say it like that. So like, insert the embryo, like how romantic is that? Anyways, just like insert is an awful word.
It is. We'll figure out something better than that, but please proceed.
It's so like gross and like medical. Anyways, that is what it is. But they gave me prednisone and I had to take that because I have like inflammation and they're worried about miscarriages. So they want to calm inflammation. So they give you prednisone. And that makes you fat. It does. Yeah. It makes you eat a lot, which is kind of good because my husband likes it when I'm chunky. So
well, let all the heavier girls hear that and smile.
Yes. My friends are like, you're so lucky. Your husband likes it when you're chunky. I'm like, I think most guys do. I think most guys like more of like a chunkier girl. I'm not talking about like obese, but like junk in the trunk.
Yeah, absolutely. We like some meat.
Like a little bit of like meat.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
and in the right places, it's perfect. Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
The front butt, that's not such a good look, but
the front butt.
It's gross. So that put a little bit of size on you that your husband was very happy with.
Yeah, I was not happy.
You were not happy though, right?
Yeah, I thought I looked gross. But, I'm not talking like it wasn't like dramatic. Of course, when I get pregnant, I get really big. Like, it is embarrassing because I'm short. So the weight goes like everywhere. I'm not one of those beautiful pregnant women. Like sometimes you see these women and they're like so majestic when they're pregnant and they're just like a belly, and they're just glowing. No, I'm the opposite of all of that. I'm like sweaty and like swollen, fat, and like nothing looks good. And I just give up on life. I wear sweatpants. So yeah.
And you want to get right back to that state as soon as possible.
That is the downfall of pregnancy. It is something. I know it's so ego-based to say that, but like it's hard to be fat for like a long time. It's not like once you give birth, you're just suddenly thin. No, I'm not. Some women are, right? Like some women get lucky. I am not one of them. I stayed fat for a while.
So what is it? I mean, if we could just jump to that, we can jump back. After your pregnancies, you had to go back to the gym. You had to lose this weight to your husband's chagrin. And it took it. Let's go ahead.
He's still trying to lose the weight.
Oh, you're still
I was really skinny when I was younger, so I'm never gonna get back to that weight. You just have to deal with it. Like it's not like I look bad, but I'm just, I'm never going to be that weight again. Like I was like 115 pounds. Like it's just not going to happen. So you have to just move on. It's also age. That's not helpful.
You feel older from.
No, you gain weight as you get older. Like, you have to work for your beauty as you get older, for sure.
Right.
Even men, they have to work for that beauty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure it'll happen at some point.
Guys, though, I say they keep their hair and they stay in shape, they'll be hot forever. Like women, it's a little bit more complicated.
Yes. Well, I guess there's that saying about men aging, women aging, wine and wine and milk, I guess it is.
Oh yeah, some women age like milk. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, does pregnancy? Now, I've heard, and maybe this is just sort of a colloquialism, but I've heard that pregnancy kind of infuses the woman with youth. Is that true? Did you feel that? Did you experience that? No, it looks like maybe not.
I don't know. Did I experience? No, not for me. I don't want to make it seem like it's negative. My first pregnancy was great. Like I was awesome. I think what happened was the second one, I'm an impatient person. So I was like really impatient. So I was like, oh, I've done this before. Can we just get this over with? Like just give me that baby sort of thing, But yeah, one thing that pregnancy did help me with, I used to have like a milk sensitivity. I couldn't drink milk. And then during my pregnancies, both of them, my kids, like they wanted milk. So I was like, oh man, if I drink milk, it's going to make me sick. But like, nope, it cured me of any sort of issues that I had with dairy. And after that, I was like totally fine. Could drink milk all the time now, even. So pregnancy is pretty magical in that way.
Yes, it seems to be. I've heard other similar stories, and I guess it's just kind of throwing your body into maybe a different state, and things are kind of getting reoriented biologically. And
I don't know, but the baby, like my one son, is like a milk monster. We always say all the time, like, we need to buy a cow. He drinks so much milk. And I'm like, when I was pregnant, all I wanted to do was drink milk. So, I don't know. It's weird. Like, I didn't think I was going to be able to handle it, but totally could.
But to get pregnant, you had to stop the milk. And then once you were pregnant, you had this urge for it.
Well, yeah, like actually the first pregnancy, everything went out the window because like I was younger. So it is easier to get pregnant when you're younger. I did eat a lot of ice cream, but if you're dealing with infertility, it's a whole different ballgame. You have to become very fastidious about like everything that you do. And dairy is like one of those things. But yeah, I threw all that. Like, I didn't know what I was doing the first time around. Like I didn't know that I had any issues. So I was just like, normal eating ice cream. Because I believe one study, it was like on some mainstream media news article. They're like, eat ice cream if you want to get pregnant. Meanwhile, now I know, I'm like, no, don't eat ice cream. It's so bad for you.
What do you think, kind of as an aside off of that, what do you think might be behind some of these like mainstream recommendations that always seem to fly in the face, or often rather fly in the face of what's being said otherwise and working for people otherwise? Do you think there's a malice there, or just ignorance? Or
well, it's kind of hard to think that there isn't, based on like, think about like the CDC and like what they did with COVID vaccine, right? Like, oh, it's safe and healthy for pregnant women. Like, no, it isn't. How can you say that? So I don't trust any of them anymore. Is it nefarious? It might be. I mean, the people in charge, as well, if I'm wearing my conspiracy theory hat, it's all about depopulation, right? So that's what CNN says.
Yeah.
So I go with that and I kind of work backwards. I'm like a detective in that way, where I'm just like, you have to really read the individual studies. That's what you have to do. You have to read the scientific studies that have been produced. But who wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. That's like boring geek stuff. Only people like me want to do that. So, it's really hard to disseminate real information from fake, but really want to spend some time following like, I don't know. I think people that are kind of like homeschool moms are pretty smart about that kind of stuff. Like anybody working outside of the system is going to have more information. I wouldn't go to mainstream media sources on anything to do with fertility. I don't trust a single thing they put out. Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the most useful things that you have said today for women who are looking to be pregnant at any age. Just you got to do this research yourself. You can't just trust these. You can't, and especially, and that's, I guess, to segue to the next question that I had. What do you think after COVID? Now that we have so much knowledge now is coming out, continues to come out about COVID, about the vaccines, that people were going to prison, they were losing their jobs, and they were actually right all along. And I just read, it was a couple days ago, a mainstream media source, about people being rehired that were fired up in New York, state of New York. I can't recall the companies or whether it was state owned or used these private companies for state contracts, but people were fired because they wouldn't get the COVID vaccines. So all this information is coming out. Do you think that this is going to make more people wary, women who want to become pregnant, wary of the kind of recommendations that the establishment is making?
Good question. I kind of get a gauge on it because I'm part of a lot of fertility groups and just filled with like average people, not necessarily anybody who is anti-vax or whatever. I hate that word, anti-vax. It's so stupid. It's just, for all intents and purposes, I will use that word. But when I say anti-vax, you know what I'm talking about. Smart people. Anyways,
right.
I'm just saying that when I see their comments, here's a good one. So I was on one of the fertility group websites today, and I saw that they had posted a story on CNN about a woman who was 7 months pregnant, and she just died. She just died in her shower. She just had a massive heart attack and died, and her baby died too.
Oh my gosh.
And I know, so sad, heartbreakingly sad, like really sad stuff. And the thread, like the comments I'm reading, not one person, and there was probably 50 to 100 comments, not one person mentioned the COVID vaccine, like not even one. So I don't know, like that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, the people that were awake, I think, are more awake. I think people that were like teetering on the edge, maybe, yeah. But if you took the vaccine, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think
it does seem to be like a mindset, doesn't it? It's just like whatever the authority figure says, you just submit to it, irrespective of any investigation or evaluation, reason, logic, evidence. It's just submit to the authority if they say to do this. And even with these montages being put out of just a couple of years ago, where these talking heads, these so-called scientists, the CDC leaders and chiefs, etc., World Health Organization, and they're standing at the microphones and they're saying, you are the reason everybody is dying. You are the reason. And it ends up none of that true, not even remotely.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever felt as more right about an issue as I did with the COVID stuff. Like, can we talk about this or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Before I was like, can we talk about COVID? Or are they going to shut down your page?
Well, if you say anything that I have to bring CNN on, I will just mention it here. So no worries.
I only ask out of concern because they took a bunch of my videos down on YouTube. I was still posting during that time, and they actually went into my channel, like into like stuff that hadn't been released yet, and deleted it. So
wow.
It was insane. But anyways, like during COVID, I remember it was like April of 2020, and I was like, okay, this is BS. All of it is a lie. And I was like, and I would say on my Twitter account, I wasn't hiding anything. I would say, don't take this vaccine that they're going to sell to you. I said, don't do it, man. And I'm sure, like, Alex Jones, he was like way ahead of the party. But, I was just going with my own instincts. I was like, don't take anything that they're going to offer you, because they're going to use this vaccine as a way to get out of this. You could see the setup.
Yeah.
And then what was even more crazy to me was that people were willing to take more than one of these shots. Like one was like crazy enough, but like signing up for 2, 3, 4, 5 shots, I was like, what has happened to these people's brains? Like, they don't work anymore. I still see people wearing masks all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I do too. In fact, I saw people, I was at a drugstore and in line, and I saw a otherwise healthy looking family, mother, father, son, daughter, and they had all just gone in and gotten their COVID vaccine, and they were very happy. They all had masks on. This was like a year and a half ago, I guess, or a year ago. And the little boy immediately was having some sort of reaction, and they had to lay him down on the floor in this drugstore. And it was like a 9-year-old or 8-year-old or something like this. Now, I don't know what it was from. Now, I'm not saying it was from the vaccine, the big, powerful.
I would have freaked out if I were. See, you know what? This is where I don't have a problem being a Karen. Like, Karens can be good, right? Like, we enforce the social order of, decency. So, like, if I saw that, I would have been like,
that's what I know.
I would have been like, what have you done? Like, I would have freaked out. I'm happy that these things don't happen in front of me because I'd probably go to jail.
That's why we love you, Jill. That's why you're awesome.
We can only bring it on. And then other times, like, you have children. Like, you have to think about them.
Well, we can only imagine that if you were even more irascible when you were pregnant, it would have probably been glorious to watch you take on everybody, every foe that came your way. That's glorious.
Pregnancy makes you really vulnerable. So I don't put myself in any high risk positions when you like have a really big belly and you can't really move around well. Yeah. It's kind of a little bit frightening. So like I wouldn't take public transit when I was pregnant. The last couple of months of being pregnant, I didn't really venture out. Like I was kind of just like at home because I was like, no, I need to feel as safe as possible. So it was actually like a different mentality. Like it was weird. I remember thinking like, I need to feel safe, and like going on public transit makes me feel unsafe on any given day, let alone being pregnant.
Yes, I can absolutely see that.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Mm-hmm. Before, I know we're running out of time with you today. We're definitely not waiting a year to have you back. You're too much fun. I wanted to ask about freezing eggs. And what's up with that? And how does that preserve fertility? And should women be thinking about doing that if they're not quite ready?
Yeah. Well,
to have a baby?
Okay. So freezing eggs, I didn't do any freezing eggs. Like mine were embryos that are frozen. And I don't think people know the distinction. Like they don't really know. They just hear freezing eggs and they assume that they're fertilized eggs, but they're not. Like frozen eggs are just extracted from the female and frozen in time. There's no sperm with the egg. So it's not an embryo, it's an egg. And an egg doesn't make a baby, it's an embryo that makes a baby. Or rather, like a fertilized embryo, right? So in this case, like when women are like, I'm going to freeze my eggs, I'm like, okay, like that. I don't think that that's a bad idea. We live in like a fallen world, and unfortunately this is our reality. And a lot of women, like, I think planning ahead like that is a good idea, but to think that that is going to solve all your problems is not really smart, because like I have a few friends in this situation and I try to explain to them, like, just because you have, say, 36 eggs frozen, that's a really big number. Okay, well, when you go to fertilize those eggs, you're going to lose some of them for sure. They're not all going to make it. And then if you get them tested, you're going to lose a whole bunch of other ones because not all of those eggs are normal, right? Like there's a lot of them that are abnormal.
I see.
And then by the time you're all said and done, you might end up with only a few. Right? And there's no guarantees that if you go and do the transfer that you're going to get pregnant, because they say that every one embryo, you have to try 3 times to get pregnant, go through transfers 3 times. So That's what I mean. Like, it sounds like a big number. You'll read in an article, oh, well, I had 50 eggs frozen. But that is misleading because it's not really accurate in terms of how many you're going to end up with that is a viable egg. And then once you have the viable egg, is it actually going to work when you go to do your transfer? It might not. And if you have fertility problems that you don't know about, and that's the other thing, waiting for pregnancy as you age, you don't necessarily recognize that you have fertility issues until you start to try to get pregnant. So a woman who freezes her eggs might have PCOS and not know. She might have endometriosis and not know. She might have blood clotting issues and not know. And it's only until she starts to try to get pregnant and then the pregnancies fail that she's going, well, what's happening? I don't understand. And then now she's got to go through the rigorous process to figure out what's going on. And now you've wasted time, you've wasted money, you've wasted eggs. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, I can tell you the hardest things I've ever done in my life, IVF's number one. It's really hard. It's really hard because you have to get like an A+ at every single stage of it. If you get like a B or C grading, like I'm just using that as a metaphor, then you fail and the whole thing fails and thousands of dollars is down the drain. $20,000-$30,000 is down the drain.
How much?
To start again. IVF is like $20,000 to $30,000. Like that's like everything. That's like your retrieval and your transfer. But like drugs cost a fortune, right? Like, it's not cheap. So that's why I'm saying, like, you have to prep. I will tell you this caveat before I go. I did try another transfer in October of last year and it failed. And so like I tried to get pregnant in October and I was like all kind of, I'm going to get pregnant. I get pregnant so easily. Look at me on my first go. I got pregnant. I had this healthy baby. You know, I can do this. Oh, wow. God put me in my place with all my pride and it failed. And that was a healthy egg that had been tested and I had a chemical pregnancy. So that means I tested positive and then it went away. And yeah. And so it's because I didn't prep. You have to prep. If you're going to do IVF, you're going to do a retrieval, you have to prep. I don't care what the doctors say. Like, you can't just go into it and like be eating like garbage and not exercising and not doing like, you know, relaxation techniques or anything. Like, you have to prep properly. You have to take supplements. You have to do certain things. Otherwise, you just wasted. And I did like $2,000 or $3,000 on a transfer. Like, I didn't do anything. I did the protocol that the doctor gave me, but I didn't do like my regular stuff because prior, when I got pregnant with my son, I became a crazy person. The things that I did, like, I just was like, I'm getting pregnant. I'm going to do everything. And it worked. This time around, I was just too ego driven. I was like, I don't need that. I don't have to do that. Well, turns out you do. So I would recommend, if you're going to go through IVF and you're going to go through the hassle and all the money and all of that, you prep properly for both your transfer and your retrievals because you'll get better results. You will get guaranteed you'll have better results.
Well, those are some wise words. It's wonderful having you on. It's fantastic seeing you. So happy that you and your husband are doing well, if a little bit draggled and wayworn by the kids, which is a wonderful thing. We get it perfectly right on cue. I love it. But we will pray. Let's, folks, pray for Jill and her husband and send the positive energy. Yeah, make sure that you pray that the hopefully what Jill and her husband wants matches with what the good Lord wants, and they'll have the outcome that will bring them the most joy and a big, bright, beautiful future. Where can folks find you? And everybody, please follow Jill wherever she shares in a moment. As soon as we get finished here, head on over, and we'll put up the link as soon as we wrap up. What are your final thoughts, and where can people find you?
I'm just on Jill Colton Free on Twitter. I'm pretty much just on Twitter now. Like, I have my YouTube channel still, but it's inactive. I hope that I will get it going when I have some time. But yeah, I'm just on Twitter for now. So please follow me there and we can chat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been glorious, and it's going to be soon. It'll be like a month or something, and I'll reach back out. I'll have you again. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But it's been a great conversation today, Jill.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you and your husband, your whole family. And we'll see you all in probably a couple days, if not sooner. But otherwise, love you all. Roll out. I want you to reach out in love. I want you to let those brothers and sisters around the base, let them know that even though the anti-whites wield so much power, that we are winning every contest with them, and that it's only a matter of time. Tell them that they can be more than they are. Tell them that they can stand up for Western kind, Western civilization, and everyone who lives in Western civilization of all immutable characteristics. Tell them that there's a way that they can stand up for it in love with the moral high ground. Be gentle with them at first. Coming out of a story that you thought was the real world is one of the hardest things that folks can do. If you go there with a true spirit and a true heart, with humility, you're going to win more souls than you'll ever turn away. And in the end, all of that will redound to the glory of our people and the reclamation of our destiny.